Hi guys, hello. A few words about me. So, I'm a junior software engineer at a very respectable company. I have decided to change a career. I used to live in London for quite a while, and I've been doing nothing ambitious like waiting tables or managing a restaurant. And at some point in my late 20s, I decided that it's time to change my life. And obviously, I googled what are the most popular choices, and my top two were becoming an urban designer. I still think I have a chance there, but my first choice was to become a software engineer because it's like you stay at home, you have a computer, you're self-sufficient, and when you need to you can talk to people, but you don't have to, and it's very creative. And the best thing is that you don't actually have to be a genius to become a software engineer. It's just or worse, it requires a lot of work, a lot of focus, and being systematic. But also good news for those of you who aren't very systematic, are a bit lazy, or a bit of master procrastinators like myself. And if your relationship with JavaScript or programming is like an on-off relationship, I can tell you it's still possible. It's like you can try 100 times, and maybe this 101st is gonna be the one. That's what happened with me, and I don't regret. I could be where I am now a little bit faster, or I could work a little harder right now towards becoming an experienced engineer, software engineer. But everyone needs to work on their own pace, and that's what I'll support. So that's about me, and I'll strongly encourage you to click the video and start studying with me. We are here to study some JavaScript, and what I had in mind is like preparing a series of tutorials, mini workshops for like complete beginners, or for anyone who is interested in refreshing their memory, or anyone who thought they knew but then they got asked a few questions on the interview and then decided that it's actually maybe not so clear.
I've never been so wrong in all my life.
I would like to focus a lot on the theory, and I'm not going to do a lot of like quick coding, quick lines of code, and it's all about slow pace and getting the basics right. And I want you to like build very strong foundation, to have it so deeply ingrained in your memory so that it also it almost becomes your second nature, like driving a car. And not almost, but actually I want you to have it like, you wake up in the middle of the night and you just feel it.
I know JavaScript.
Those very basic terminology in JS, so that later on, I believe that you are on your path to becoming a software engineer, so that later on, when you're already on your position at work, you have all those free resources to focus on the logic of your program, and you don't have to think what is that thing that everyone is using in the program, but actually I'm not sure.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a slow pace, but I think very beneficial for everyone. I mean, it's like sometimes people have this on-off relationship with programming, and sometimes you feel like you've known something, but then you feel like you actually forgotten what we forgot. And there's no shame. I'm a bit of a traditional, like an old school person, I would say. Like I love my MacBook Pro, but I also love pen and pencil. And I don't think there is anything to be ashamed of. So, where shall we start? First things first, I want to discuss the most basic element in JS, and I think probably the most basic element in any modern programming language, which is a variable. A helpful question here might be, what is the purpose of a variable? I would say a variable is a tool or a device for us to store some sort of data. You have an information and you want to store it. You want to save it into your program's memory so that later on you can recall it, you can refer to it, or you can process it, but it's there. Basically, that's the difference between an ordinary value and the actual variable. So let's get down to it. If you're using Safari, I would strongly recommend that you download Chrome. I've got those amazing dev tools available to you, and this is, if you want to work alongside me, that would be best if you had Chrome. So if you could just open any site, and then this space for a domain, you would put about, not necessarily in capital letters, about colon blank, and then magic happens. You've got like an empty website, and then if you press F12, you've got your dev tools open, and that's where you can work, and that's where you can master your developer skills. If you have you go on the bar on the top elements where you can see a very basic HTML document, that's not going to be our focus for today. You have a console, that is going to be our focus for today. Sources, network, performance, this is all quite advanced. This is not for today. Maybe like a little bit later on. For now, console. One other thing I think it might be worth mentioning is those 3 dots in here where you can customize your dev tools, and you could put on the left hand side, or you could put on the right hand side, and it's your personal preference. But for today, I think it's best if we just undock into a separate window and zoom in. I will zoom in so that you can see what I'm doing on here. What's the main difference between a variable and just an ordinary piece of information, data? Like if I put a string, my name is capital letter Alexandra, in inverted commas because it's a string, it's a type of data, and press enter. It is absolutely no problem. JS engine understood. That's my input. I wanted to say that my name is Alexandra, and it's gonna print out. That's fine. That's great. But is there anything at all you could do with this piece of information later on? Well, you can't, because it hasn't been saved into memory. It actually, you could say that it literally doesn't exist.
You don't exist to me at this moment.
It's nowhere to be found. So what other thing you could put, like a number 50. It's going to print out 50. Yeah, it's the engine is telling you that I understood. You wanted to put 50 in. There's nothing I can do with it. You never asked me to do anything with it. I would just leave it there. But is like it lived its very short life, and now it's gone, and it's gone forever.
50 went broke.
You can do many other operations like 50 plus 22. Now it's already like a suggestion underneath that it's going to be 72. I press enter, is 72. Yes, JS can be a calculator. Again, it existed for 1 second and it's gone now. We can never refer to it. We cannot process this information. We can't. It's nowhere to be found in the program. But if you do that's magic with variable, you put a var, and that's like literally telling you, I hate all the suggestions here. Why is it here? Okay, much better now. If you put the magic word var, it's like kind of you telling the program, listen mate, I'm gonna put a variable here. So you be careful. Next thing that happens is you're gonna put the name of that variable. Let's keep it simple. A name. And then equal sign. No suggestions needed. And then in inverted commas, Alexandra, because that's my name. And this is me telling the computer that I want the program to remember that I want to create a variable with that name and the value of Alexandra. In JS, you could just finish the line without anything and it's gonna work just fine. But I think it's a good practice to always finish a line with a semicolon and then press enter. What happens here is undefined, but do not worry about this. There's nothing wrong with this. That's how it works. That's what it is. So we have a name, and now that magic that happens later on is that we can just type name and program will find it for you. So it's not gone, it still exists. It has its life. We might not be able to see it, but the program takes care of it for us. Have a look. Oh, my slides. Yeah, as I said, I'm old school, but I also have this PowerPoint presentation for you guys. And so, what makes a variable? So, if you ever go to an interview, sometimes for a junior position, you might get a question, what makes a variable? Or even just for yourself, it's good to know it's got 3 properties. It's got a name, that is like, how do you find it? How do you find in a program? You have that variable, but you also need to name it. So that's what the name is for. It's a variable's ID. The other very important thing that you will need to know is that it's got this memory space. The program will save it for you, it will store it for you, but well, even if we don't see it, we don't know, it's like somewhere in the vein, but it has its address. We don't take care of it, the program takes care of it, but it's something we just need to know. Variable has its memory space, it exists there, and kind of waits for when it's needed. And last but not least, and crucial, it's a value. So we kind of need a value for a variable if we want this variable to have like some meaning. And it could be a name, like I put a string. It's like we've got types, and let's not bother too much about it, but let's remember that we have like a string for a name, or a number for, like, if I want to say Alexandra's age, right? So we've got var Alexandra's age, that would be a name, and then comes a value, and let's say, no, let's stick to the truth. I'm gonna be 32 next month, so let's put 32, and that's a number, and that's a value of type number. Often a value will be an object, and often you will hear a statement or see a statement that everything in JS is an object, which is almost entirely true, because almost everything in JS is an object. And yeah, we won't talk about it yet, but it's gonna be like, we'll spend like loads of time discussing objects soon enough. But for now, let's just remember what are those three things that make a variable, and that a value is so important because it's a type, can be of any type. And for now, just remember we have the string type and the number type. Whoops. Next, creating a variable. I kind of know how to create a variable. It's just I thought it would be good to mention that it's quite similar in all modern programming languages. Obviously in JS it's the, I would say, the best way, but you know, if you find someone programming in PHP, you'll find that they have this sign of dollar to kind of communicate to the program, to the computer, that you're going to introduce some sort of data, some variable. In Java, you will have to decide and declare a type of variable before. So int stays for an integer. An integer is a whole number. So we're already telling a computer we don't put here a var like in JavaScript. We would put int age and a number 22. In C++, I think it's the same thing in Java as well. They would put for like floating point numbers like 12.5, already declaring a type as well, that is a float, and then the name, and then the value. The value they want to assign to a specific variable. So, well, you know, as in anything, we've got like loads of different ways of doing something. And some people will say, listen, JS is poor because you don't declare, you don't tell the computer, the program, what type of variable you're going to create, so you're losing on the resources. Some other people will say, that's great, because you don't have to be so strict, you've got this flexibility. And so only once you try to write your own code, only then can you tell, or can you form your own opinion, because it's impossible to listen to people. You wouldn't know. It's like, as many people, as many opinions. I've got another slide. What? Oh yeah, I've got another one saying creating a variable. So, as I said, I've got the keyword var, and then I've got the name for your variable, and then an operator, an assignment operator. I will tell the program, now I'm assigning a value, and here goes a value. Simple. Let's come back to our console. So, as with anything, we've got quite a few but very simple rules if you want to create a good variable, a neat variable and you don't want to introduce any chaos into your program. So as ever, we put a var, then your name, not your name, a name that you wanted. I'm not sure why we come up with all the suggestions here. It's like from when I practiced for this tutorial. So you've got I'll put our variables name, and then comes important. It's very little, but it's like magnificently important. And not this one, an equal mark. So in JS, it's an assignment operator. It will assign the value to our variable. It will tell the program to get ready because we are about to assign the actual value. So the program gets ready and now it's waiting. What do you want to put in here? You can put anything. You can put 23 as a number, or you could have it as a string. It's a number, but as its type would be a string if it's in inverted commas. And now we've got it assigned. Again, do not worry about this undefined. Everything is fine. It is not printing anything to the console just yet. And what's the principle here? I'm using camel case because once they hired me in my company, that's the standard. So I just picked up, and actually before when I was studying, that was also the case, that it was more common to use a camel case. But another way of putting a var's name would be like another underscore variable. Daisy. Let's call it Daisy, why not? It's like, it's also correct. So you could use either camel case or underscores. Just one little recommendation is best if you do it like consistently, if you're using the same system. Like if you decided, if you picked up, if you learned English and you decided to go with the American accent, it's good to just stick to American accent and, you know, stick to their like specific vocabulary. If you decided to go British, I think it's best that you use the same accent throughout.
Y'all talk funny, y'all got the accent.
And the same goes for the program, so it doesn't create any chaos and it's consistent, and it kind of creates this, like, you know, like you look at it and it's neat and it's tidy, and that's the goal. We like when it's clean. Everyone likes when it's clean. Remember, you can't start the name of the variable with a 0, and you can't use any spaces. It's like simple rules, basic rules. It's not too much to ask. Now, if I put a var and then yet another variable, right, and I just press a semicolon at the end, that is like, this means there's basically no assignment. We are declaring a variable, but we do not assign it to anything. It's just a declaration. But if I press enter, we got this response from a program undefined, which means that actually it doesn't mean nothing. It's just undefined. Well, in that case, we didn't assign it to anything, so the program automatically assigned value undefined. So if I try to console log another variable, it will return undefined. But if I try console login and our variable's name, it will return 23. So if you have a look, if you have a look, a daisy or 23 has been assigned. We've got this assignment operator, and a variable has its data. It's like it's connected, but another variable or another one, dog, we have it undefined. If we try to console log whatever is underneath, there's no reference to anything. It does exist in the program, in the program's memory, but it got automatically assigned value of undefined. But don't worry, now not everything's lost, because we can overwrite it. So for now it's undefined. Well, if you put dog equals, and we put Fred, now we use this assignment to give it a name, and now our variable dog exists in the computer's memory and the program's memory as Fred. So in here, in JS, you could even change a type. So if you decided that you want to keep something else under the variable, and you put like, I no longer want to say that my dog's name is Fred. Now I want to say dog is 10 years old, and that's a reassignment. So there's no problem. We changed its value, and we even changed its type from a string to a number. I think kind of useful to know that it's possible in JavaScript. Kind of confusing, but it's like when you talk about variables, you've got a variable that got that keyword, and then you've got a name for a variable, and then you've got a value, and it's like value has a type and not a variable. So it's all about the value and not about the variable. It's like the whole entity, but we need to remember that a value is coming from like a value here. So we've got a string Fred or a number 10, that is a value, and that's where we find a type. We've got like loads and loads more types, but we'll talk about it and then we'll discuss it in more detail and like a lot of detail later on, if you stick with me and watch another tutorial and another tutorial and another tutorial
And another one.
next week. You know, it's like people often make this comparison to a box, that a variable is like a box holding something inside. I quite like a reference or analogy to a bucket, because you know, you could put in the bucket you could put like water, but you could put also like sand or like toilet paper.
Leave me alone.
Like lots of different things, lots of different shapes that you can fit in there. And so it kind of makes sense to make this comparison to a box between a variable. And at the end, I've got like this special trick for you. So we talked a lot about a variable, because that's the name. But in 2015, ECMAScript 6 came up with a new standard that introduced 2 new types of variables. So you have now a let and a const and a variable, a var, because you know, if you gotta know that a variable still exists and it's widely used in old programs, and you'll see that a lot and again and again. But it's now it's common, and well, it's a new standard, so you gotta know that from now on you will be also asked you'll be mainly asked to write new programs using const and let. There's like many differences, but we won't go into much detail today because that would be just like overburdening you. This is not for today. This is like not yet. But it's just, I want you to remember from today, I want you to remember that there is a const. Const is a constant variable. So a variable that doesn't change. And a let. A let has a lot more freedom. And to sum it up, I mean, guys, I need you to remember a few things from our tutorial today so that you are comfortable the next time we meet. So you've got two separate processes while creating a variable. And you can create a variable and just have a declaration, so you're declaring a variable. Or you can declare a variable and initialize it. And the difference is when you assign a value to that variable. Another thing is, I want you to answer in your heart. What do you think a variable is in your own words? Would you be able to explain it to somebody else? Would you be able to explain it to yourself? What are the 3 properties whilst creating a variable? Can you change the value of a variable? And if you do, how would you do it? Right. I think that would be all for today. Really, thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions and what I could improve, or if you have any questions regarding this material, please feel free to comment below. And just don't be too harsh. I'm also stressed out. I promise I will get better. Every time I'll get better. Thanks.